Welcome to the A.R. Bernard Show. As we get deeper into this presidential election season, more and more familiar faces are jumping in to make their stances known. Today's guest, Emmy-nominated actress Yvette Nicole Brown. She's no stranger to the political sphere. She's been a tireless advocate for voter education, union rights, and the plights of caregivers for years. Now she's turning her attention to the presidential race, throwing her full support behind the Harris-Walz ticket. Please welcome the formidable Yvette Nicole Brown.
Oh, hi. Thanks for having me, Pastor.
It's good to have you with us, and thank you for taking the time, as I said before we started the program. A lot of time, because you're busy. You are one busy bee, as I looked at all the things that you're involved with. This was your first visit to the DNC. First, let's understand why you are so engaged with civic activities.
You know, my mom, may she rest in peace, always taught me and my brother that, to whom much is given, much is required. And the first thing you can do as a citizen of this country is to make sure that your voice is heard. So from the time I was little, she would take us to the polls with her. I remember my 18th birthday, there was a big election the year of my 18th birthday, and I tried to get in under the wire, and they said, sorry, dear, you're 17 and a half. You can't do it yet. But I wrote a letter to my state registrars to see if they would do a little favor and let me because I really want to vote. They said, dear, we got to do it the right way. So I've been that engaged. And I was recently going through old pictures from my high school and found a picture of me on the auditorium stage next to a podium that had vote on it. And I was encouraging my fellow classmates to make sure they registered if they were going to be 18 in time, because I would not be. So I have been engaged my entire life. And I believe our vote is our voice. And it's important to exercise that. There's power in using your voice.
Why is it so important to especially marginalized peoples within the United States, specifically people of color?
Well, I think the easiest thing to remember is that they never tell non-marginalized people not to vote. They only try to get us not to vote, which tells me that there's something special about it. I've always known that. And then just to know that my ancestors died for this right, and they counted marbles in glass jars to be able to vote. They walked for miles to be able to vote. They knew how important this was. And so far be it from me to rest on my laurels at this point. So it's important because it's the only way we can see change. And I always tell people now, if you just look at the Congress now and what has been accomplished under Republican rule, and I don't know if this is partisan, so I'm not trying to be very partisan, but you see what's done. And our votes on the off years are what decide who's in Congress. And Congress holds the power of the purse. Congress decides where money goes and what bills are sent to the president to pass. So you have to make sure that the people that care about the things you care about are your representatives and your senators. And I just don't think that's said enough. So it's important. It's all important.
Do you think the importance of the vote is lost on this generation?
Yeah, because I think, and I don't even blame them for that. I think that there's been successful mis- and disinformation campaigns that have targeted marginalized people. I think that a lot of people have been beat down so long. They believe that it's just the president's fault that their potholes are not filled or they don't have a higher minimum wage, forgetting that a lot of the things that they have problems with are decided by local politicians. And if they don't vote in elections on off years, they're not voting for the people that make the decisions about the potholes and other infrastructure and things like that. And so I think, I think this generation didn't grow up with Schoolhouse Rock. Schoolhouse Rock got us together in the 70s and 80s. And I don't think, and I know for sure that they don't teach basic civics in most classes now. So they don't even know that there's 3 branches of government and that they're all equal and who does what and who controls what. So they don't even know how important voting every election is. So I don't blame them. But I'm trying to use everything I have to get them in the game. Like, come on, let's go.
You made it a point to say in one interview that you don't tell them who to vote for, but you tell them that it's important that they vote.
Right.
But you are all out on the Harris-Walz campaign.
Yes. I don't tell them who to vote for, but I tell them who I'm voting for. I've never been a secret voter. And I always tell people, if you care about the things that I care about, this is who I'm voting for. If you and I've said this too, I believe that Black women consistently vote for the greater good of everyone. So if you want to know who to vote for, you find 5 Black women and ask them who they're voting for, and just follow suit, because we do the research. It's been proven that we do the research, and we will vote to our detriment if it helps more people. And so the whole goal is for us to be okay, right? For us to have food and water and to not be shot in our schools and our churches. Like, this is the goal. So we need to get people in office that care about gun control and care about a woman's right to choose health care, that kind of stuff. It's important. So, yeah, I don't tell them who to vote for, but I share who I vote for. And it's Harris-Walz this time around, for sure.
So with Joe Biden stepping down and Kamala Harris stepping in, it has revitalized the Democratic Party.
Yes.
Was that reflected in the DNC experience?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, I think that Joe Biden will go down as one of the greatest patriots this country has ever seen. There are very few politicians that would make that sacrificial decision that he made. I was very vocal that I didn't like the way they came for Joe, and I didn't like how he was handled in that moment. But I do think he made the right decision, and I believe that he also made a right decision in putting his support behind Vice President Harris immediately. I think that's what made her transition to the head of the ticket so seamless. And as we see now, and especially at the DNC, we know that it was the right decision. We know that she's the right person for this time. We know that she makes great decisions because she chose that delightful Tim Walz to be her partner in this. So I just think it's great, and that energy and that electricity was reverberating in that center we were at. It was amazing.
There are those who are saying that, they're not sure what she believes, what she stands for, because she hasn't clearly articulated that.
That's interesting.
On the other side, there are those who are saying she can't. I'm one of them who's saying she can't because she's still vice president.
Right.
And she has to, walk a certain way. And she can't, put herself in conflict with her current boss, who's still her boss. So she's got to navigate that very carefully. But has she said enough for us to judge her by her present and not her past?
Absolutely. First of all, we have one president at a time. So she's still vice president. She is running for office, but she's still vice president. So she has to align with the policies that President Biden has chosen. So that's it. But if you pay close attention, and if you look at what she said before she was vice president and what she said when she was attorney general and when she was a senator, you get a very clear idea of who this woman is. If you watch the DNC and heard her speech, you get a very clear understanding of what she would do when she's president. And then there's a long list of things that she's accomplished as part of the Biden-Harris administration. So I feel like anyone that says they don't know, they're being disingenuous. I think they do know. They may not like it. They may not like how much she gets done and how great she is, but they can't say that they don't know. And Google is free. The Google is still around. The Google
you can look it up.
still exists. You go on and just Google, and the list will pop up of what she did, or go to her website and find out what she wants to do. She's been very clear. And then also what I say also, when I pick a candidate, I want them to be intelligent, I want them to be kind, and I want them to be servant leaders. And I think those three things are in Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in spades. I don't want a hateful, nasty person representing my country or me. I want the person that represents us, who stands behind that seal, to be the best of us, and to someone to be aspiring for us to have great lives. And I see that in Harris and Walz.
Well, you answered my question, because I was going to ask you to describe her. Why was Walz a good pick for her?
Oh, gosh, she's delightful. And, I tried my best. I believe in every president should choose the running mate that they want to choose. And so, and not that I have vice president's ear where I could get and say, girl, this is who you should pick. But when I was on Twitter, I was really putting my foot on that Walz, the lever on Walz's side. I just found him to be just fun and kind. And he's a family man. And you look at what he's done in his state. All those sweet babies, every school-age child has a breakfast and lunch because of this man. I mean, come on. He's a kind servant leader. And we need more of that. And there's nothing against all of the other people that were in contention. Like, we have a very deep bench on the Democratic side, But I just felt that he was the right fit for her. Joy and Joy. They're both joyful warriors. And I think they're going to do great things for our country.
Do you think the team reflects the greater portion of America, an American population?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that we are kinder than the other side believes. I think that we are better people than the other side describes. I think we're more loving and welcoming than the other side describes. I think that more of us have the heart of Christ, the true heart of Christ, because Christ took care of orphans and the sick and the old. He made sure that orphans had somewhere to go. Christ wouldn't say, don't let people enter this country, and he would not. If Christ were walking right now, he would not treat people coming in to seek asylum or migrants poorly, nor would he call them vermin or poison. So that harkens to another type of leader that maybe was in Germany a few years ago. It does not speak to who Christ is. So in my mind, we need leaders that love and care the way Christ loved, not the true Christ. No, we need the true and risen. That one, not the crystal.
I hear you.
Okay. Real Jesus. That one. And he laid it out how you're supposed to do it. So anyone saying that they don't know what Christ says, the same people saying they don't know what Kamala would do. It's all in the book. It's right there. You go on and just looking in the book. He tells you how to do it.
Do you feel there was a greater, expression of faith and God in the DNC compared to times past?
I mean, I don't know about times past. This is my first DNC, but I do think that you will know them by their fruit. And I think that if you look at how you felt after someone spoke between the DNC and the RNC, did you feel hopeful and let's do this and this is going to be great and everybody's going to be okay? Or did you feel like there was destruction and death on the way, pestilence, and that your gut and your spirit doesn't lie. When you hear someone speak, you can see the heart of what they really believe. And I defy you to find a more buoyant experience than the DNC that week. I defy you to find it.
So you believe she has a pathway to victory?
Absolutely. If we show up and vote, anybody has a pathway to victory if we show up and vote. Everyone's saying she's unelectable. It's like she is electable if you all register and vote. Just vote for her and she's electable.
Do you feel that a certain part of the certain sector of the voting population will make the difference when it comes to her win?
Absolutely. I think anybody that reads about Project 2025 or Agenda 47 will be skipping and running and doing cartwheels to get to the polls to vote for Harris-Walz. This is not, it's not the lesser of two evils. They say stuff like that all the time. This is truly evil and good. There really is just a line down the middle. What kind of world do you want to live in? What kind of future do you want for your children if you have them? This should not be hard. And anybody that's saying they're undecided, I'm like, what is going on in your...
But the Republican Party and even Donald Trump has been distancing themselves from things like Project 2025.
They've been trying to distance themselves, but there are too much evidence that shows that they are a part of it. And the funny thing about it, which I love this for them, that this is just blowing up in their face. They were so proud of it. Oh, they just told everybody, we got a great plan. Oh, wait till you see this plan. They really were delusional enough to believe that people wanted to be essentially in camps. They really thought we'd think it was great to have a dictator. And everybody's like, no, that's what your minions may want. Your little Klan rallies you have, they may want that. But the rest of us, we don't want that. We're fighting against that. We've fought our whole lives to not end up there. So, like they say, we're not going back. This whole mythical Make America Great, the time that they saw was great was like the 1950s or the 40s. And it was not great for people that like me back then. So, no, I do not want to go to your version of a great America. Yeah. I want to go forward. I want to go forward with Harris-Walz.
I read the 920 pages of Project 2025, and it is indeed an ideological purging of the American system. Yep. And to your point that we don't even teach government in schools anymore, so they don't realize that there are three branches of government, specifically to create a balance of power.
Absolutely.
So that the executive branch does not become a king,
That's right.
a monarch.
That's right.
And it's unfortunate that we don't have those things taught. Is that part of the educating that you do when you go out to educate voters?
Absolutely. I think people forget that America was founded because we were trying to get away from a monarch.
Yeah.
We're all here. Well, we're here for different reasons. Those of us with a little bit of melanin, we're here for a different reason. But the ones that came over to leave England, they came here because they did not want to be under a king's rule. And there's a certain segment of this electorate that believes that was a good thing to do again, and it's not. So I don't know what's happening, except I do think about, this may seem random, but I think about Jim Jones a lot, and I think about what would lead people to go to follow that particular man, and what would lead people to be at a point where they would, those that did willingly drink that poison because that man said you should drink that poison, or how in other countries people are radicalized and they become a part of these violent forces that go through the streets and kill people. How do you go from a regular person to that? And I think whatever that is, I think that horrible man that's running against Kamala has studied that. We know that he had Mein Kampf in his home. So he's someone that tried to figure out the best way to manipulate and trick people. And he had said publicly that he loves the poorly educated. And one of the first things they do is they ban books and they make sure that certain things are not taught. They want a whole generation of young people to grow up not knowing the truth about what hate brings. And so that is the only thing that helps me piece together how we could be in a place where we have to have a discussion about who people should vote for. Where you got a convicted felon on one hand who wants to put us in cages, and a kind man and woman that want us to be able to buy homes and send our kids to school, and to be, for them to be able to eat when they go there and not be shot. This is not hard.
But you're a person of faith, Christian tradition.
Yes.
But the Republican Party seems to have done a very good job in hijacking that faith and giving the impression that, to be Christian is really to be Republican. How do you respond to that?
I think they tried. I don't think they did a good job of it. I don't know many true Christians that are following that mess. And I call it mess because Christ is not in it. So no, I think that they've found a way to repackage white supremacy with a Jesus bow. And that's, if they want to do that, the Bible talks about people that do that. Christ will look at you at the end and go, I don't know you. Who are you? So you can go on and say, a lot of people saying Jesus don't really know him. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the deception? I mean, I know quite a few people who are conservatives. They're Republicans, and they're people of faith. But they find themselves caught up in the idea that this person, and only this person, who's running can represent their faith.
Isn't it interesting? They pick someone that's nothing like Christ, a man that has never picked up a Bible except the one time he held it upside down after he gassed protesters to stand in front of a church. This is not a man of God. Like I said, my sheep will know my voice. That's what God says. My sheep will know my voice. So if they are following him, they are not his sheep. They somebody else's sheep.
So there's a level of deception here that you're pointing to.
Absolutely. But the Bible says that's going to happen too. They say they're going to follow after somebody that appears in their eyes to be Christ-like. But we know what's happening with that thing. I don't even call it a man anymore. I don't know what that thing is.
You're making it difficult for me to ask one of my questions, because one of my questions is, you're a person of faith. What role does faith play in your life?
Oh,
and you haven't stopped talking about it. I mean, no matter what question I ask I love it. Is that a problem in Hollywood, in the business that you're in?
Not for me. It's not a problem for me.
But some say it's a problem. They can't be a vocal Christian as you represent.
Who says? I've never had a problem. And this is the thing too, though. I came to LA chasing this dream, wanting to do one sitcom and one commercial. I am so far beyond anything I could ever dream. I don't even ask God for things anymore because I feel like it would be greedy. So at this point, if I lose everything because I did the right thing, then it's stuff that I didn't need anyway. They can take it all. Take this house, take this rubber band holding this bun up. They could walk out of here with these earrings and this mic, and I would not care if I'm on the right side of history and I know I stood up for what was important. I think of Representative John Lewis all the time, get in some good trouble. What is the point of even having fame and a name or any type of notoriety or followers if you're not leading them somewhere? What are you using it for? I don't want all this stuff for me. I can't talk about lip gloss and a dress no more. I'm tired of talking about who did my hair. I want to talk about voting, and I want to talk about, giving back, and I want to talk about caregiving and Donors Choose, a great organization. I'm a vice chair of the board for teachers and students. I want to use everything that I'm given to bless others. I've been blessed enough.
Yeah.
So if it goes, it goes. And I got a degree. I'm a legal secretary by trade, and McDonald's is always hiring. I'm going to be fine.
So let's talk about your personal causes.
Yes.
You are a supporter of unions. Unions played a very big role in our society and then began to die out. And now it seems that their importance is reemerging. Why do you think that's happening?
Well, I mean, we wouldn't have a 5-day work week if it wasn't for unions. I think people really forget how the union struggle has helped so many of us. And I'm proudly in the SAG-AFTRA union. I've been an actor for 20 plus years, and they are the reason that I get time off. They're the reason that my work hours can only be a certain time, and they can't bring me back unless 12 hours have passed. And why I get my overtime and stuff. So this is they've helped me, and they help every union that I know of has helped people. And the only people that are against unions are the really rich people, the corporations.
The money people, right?
The money people. So it says to me that it's the same thing about who's trying to keep us from voting. You have to pay attention to why they want us not to vote and who's trying to get us not to vote. Same thing for who doesn't want us to unionize and what do they get if we don't? Huh? So I pay very close attention to that. And, I will mix it up on the picket line and then smile in the face of the president of the company I work for. We had to do what we had to do. Hope there's no hard feelings. See you on set.
But you're making a good point because, people ask me, well, who should I vote for? So let me start with, that whole line, well, vote your values. But that doesn't really come into play when there are concerns that become a greater priority than our values. Your values are your long-term, rooted principles that you see in terms of life and how you should live your life.
Right.
But, I could have a value for one thing, but if I see inequities in education and my children are not experiencing the same quality education as another community, that's going to be a concern, and that's going to get my vote. We're quoting scripture here, and you've quoted a lot of them. And those who understand the book have heard and understand you. I'm going to take a little sip of water here. But
I'm going to turn my fan on because I'm a woman of a certain age, and it just got hot in here. So
I will not touch
drink
that.
your water, and I'm going to get a little bit of this fan and let me know when we're back in. And if we're back in and it's on, sometimes you need a fan.
We are good for that. So Jesus said, where your treasure is,
that's where your heart is.
There will your heart be also.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, follow the money.
That's right.
So when we think about voting, we have to ask, what do Republicans spend money on? And what do Democrats spend money on? And when you follow the money trail, then you ask, well, who's spending money on my concerns? Who's investing in my community? Who is budgeting the issues that affect me most? How do you respond to that? Yes?
Yes, because the other thing is this. I'll say this too. I don't have any children, but every time something comes across for an election to do something for the schools, I vote for it, even if it raises my taxes. Because I want children to have education and food and safety. And so, again, it's not just about voting your values. It's about voting for the greater good, right? I know it's a Christian conversation today, but I'm going to say this. Abortion is healthcare.
We're open.
Okay?
We're open. Go ahead.
Abortion is healthcare. Now, we've learned in the last few months since it's been banned how many women have suffered and almost died. It's healthcare, right? Now, as a Christian, I don't ever have to have an abortion. I don't ever have to do it. But I don't have the right to tell someone else that they can't talk to their doctor about what is better for their body and their health. And so I'm voting my values in allowing someone else the chance to survive an ectopic pregnancy or a tragic miscarriage or whatever the circumstance is. Voting my values is making sure that someone doesn't die because of what I personally believe. My personal beliefs are solid. And I can govern my body, and everyone else should have the right to govern theirs as well. So as a Christian, I think abortion should be legal because it saves lives. And also, it's none of my business what somebody else does, because Christ also tells us to get that plank of wood out your eye before you fiddle with someone else's splinter. We are not supposed to judge other people. That's his job. We're supposed to love. When he boiled down what we're supposed to do, you're supposed to love God, love yourself, and love others as yourself.
But I have to weigh in here, Sarah. When you say we're not supposed to judge other people, we do have a moral standard, a set of principles and values that guide our Christian beliefs and guide our behavior, right?
Right.
So there are those who say, well, abortion is taking a life, and there are no exceptions to that.
There's some who say, but I don't believe it is my job as a Christian to tell a woman that she should die because someone has decided she shouldn't be allowed to do what is right for her health. That's my belief. Mm-hmm. And I'm ready to stand in front of Christ and explain it. And if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But I'm telling you, I know that he told me not to get in nobody else's business. He told me clearly not to get in nobody else's business. Now, I can call sin, and I can demonstrate a life that I think is what God would like us to model. But that's where my job ends. As far as me dictating what someone else does with their body, that is not my job to do.
But isn't that important, what you're saying? What you're saying is that you could have a set of beliefs that you practice that may be in conflict with someone else and the good of someone else. And you can continue to practice your belief and not impose that.
Isn't that interesting? Isn't that crazy that you can actually love God and still be in line with what he says to do for you and not have anything to do with anybody else's business?
But does that mean that religion is private and not public and shouldn't be involved in the public square?
I don't think, I think I'm very public with my faith. I think anybody that knows me, and not even because I say it, but because how I love them. You will know them by their love. So if I'm saying that I'm a Christian and all you hear from me is hate and condemnation, I thought the Bible said there's no condemnation in Christ. So if that's the case, all you hear from me is this. Why would you want to know anything about Christ if I, as his representative, all I do is hate? Yeah. I don't know how to do it, but the way he told me to do it, he told me to love people. And that's what I do. And anybody that knows me knows that I love God.
It's interesting.
It comes out of me.
Yeah. It's interesting that you point to the hostility, the anger, the hatred, the vitriol, supposedly in representation of Jesus and Christian values. Something that I read about you and that resonated with me deeply, because my wife has MS, multiple sclerosis, and it's been some 40 years that she's gone through a process of physical problems, beginning with her eyes, and it's progressed. It's gotten worse, lack of mobility, and it's been, a tough situation. Yeah. We keep her in good spirits, so she's very happy. She still plucks my nerves, so that means she's okay.
All right, she's in there.
Doing that. She's good, and we have grandchildren and whatnot. But something my son said. We were in a public platform, and he was talking. He said, "Well, my dad is a caregiver because my mom suffers from MS." And when he said that, it was the first time that I even realized that I was a caregiver to my wife. I mean, I'm doing everything I can to make sure that she's secure, that she's okay. But I never saw myself as a caregiver. It was a revelation for me. Your father had Alzheimer's.
He's still here. Yeah.
And you are a caregiver for him.
I am.
Tell us about that.
I am in my 11th year as his caregiver. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because there are so many people, more people than they know, are caregivers. Parents are technically caregivers. If you have an aunt in another city and you're the one that makes sure she gets her food and stuff sent from Costco, you are a caregiver. You're providing care to someone, doing something for someone that they can't do for themselves, and often sacrificially. My dad has Alzheimer's. I went to get him in Cleveland in 2013. So he lived with me for 10 years up until the last 4 months, last 2 months, actually. April of this year, he had a fall and he broke his hip, and he had surgery, and we went through the whole rehab nursing facility, and the dementia told him that he couldn't walk anymore. When it came time to do physical therapy, he just could not figure out how to do it. So he no longer is able to walk, and I could no longer care for him in my home as I had been. And there was a lot of guilt tied to it. And I've spoken about this publicly. A social worker that I was working with, trying to figure out what was best for my dad, he said to me something that changed my entire perspective. It didn't remove the guilt, but it helped me understand that I was making the right decision despite the guilt. He said, "Would your time be better spent as your dad's nursemaid or his daughter?" And I was like, wow, what if your dad was in his right mind and could tell you what he wanted for you? Would he want you with him as his nurse or as his child? And I know that my dad would want me at his side as his child. And he said, and I want to ask you, Daniel was the social worker. He said, I want to ask you one other thing. He said, do you think that there's anyone on this earth that could care for your father better than you? He said, no one can love him better than you. But is there someone that could care for him at this stage better than you? And I had to admit that, yes, there is. There's lots of people that could care for him. And he said, so wouldn't your time be better spent trying to find that person or that facility or that home or that board and care and making sure he had the care that he needs, and then you could just be his kid? And I was like, whoa. And so that took some of the guilt, some of the weight off. And then I did make it my priority to find him an amazing place. And he is with loving people. It's a small home. It's a board and care. So it's him and 3 other men. And they have the same 2 caregivers every day, round the clock, which is great for people with dementia. It is 15 minutes from my house. So I see my dad as often as I want. It's not every day, all day like it was before, but it's enough for me to feel like we still have the same connection. And, he settled in. Like, he knows that that's his home. His room there is as lovely as his room was here with me. I can go there at any time of day. So I've caught him, at every stage of his day. And I know that they're taking care of him at every stage of his day because they don't know when I'm coming. I pop in all the time. It's 10 o'clock. Hey, guys, just come in and see how Daddy doing. And they know Yvette could come at any time. So even if they were trying to do something crazy, they're not going to try me.
Because you'll be there watching, of course.
I'm there. So it's been great. And I'm glad that this experience has dovetailed. I think we'll talk about it maybe a little later, but I have a wonderful podcast called Squeezed, which is a love letter to caregivers of all kinds. We talk to teachers, we talk to parents, we talk to parents that are also caring for their kids and their parents. And it's really a safe place for people just to maybe turn it on while you're washing dishes or driving somewhere or sitting with your loved one and just take the load off for a minute and laugh and learn and, yes, cry, because there's a lot, as you know, as a caregiver, there's a lot of really hard moments that are a part of it. But thankfully, there's joyous moments too. And I just cling to the joy and cling to friends and hang on friends when the rough patches come.
It's a large community of people out there. One statistic that I saw from AARP, $600 billion worth of unpaid monies to people who are caregivers, and many of them don't even realize that they're caregivers. How is the podcast being received?
It's been greatly received. I haven't checked this week, but last week we were number 3 in health and wellness on Apple Podcasts, which is great because we're brand new. And we've got this great billboard on Times Square, I think, for a couple of more days. Amazon is one of our partners, and they're streaming Squeezed. And we got this huge billboard telling people about it. So I think we're doing great in that regard. But more importantly, I'm getting wonderful DMs and messages and comments from people that are like, oh, I thought I was the only one doing this, or I didn't realize, like you said earlier, that I'm a caregiver. And oh, I loved this episode because you shared this information, or your guest shared this information that made me rethink something, or I cried through the entire episode because it was so much like my life, but I needed that cry. Thank you. So I'm getting all kinds of messages like that. And if we can just give them a moment of respite, or maybe knock on the door of government a little bit to let our leaders know what we need, because the thing that's crazy about it is so many caregivers have to leave their jobs. I was on a show called Community when my dad was first having his problems, and I told myself and him, as soon as this show is canceled, I'm going to go to Cleveland and get you. Show got canceled. I went to get him, and then the show got picked up. So I had to ask to be released from my contract, which was a lot of money. I left a lot of money on the table. But my dad is way more important than any amount of money. And thankfully, Sony and the show creator, Dan Harmon, understood how important my dad was to me. And they released me from that contract. But and I was able to care for my dad. But what if you don't have a job that will release you? What if you have a job you can't quit?
Right.
What does that do? How does that affect the care you're able to give to your loved one? There needs to be a safety net nationwide that allows caregivers to take time off with pay, or a limited, a portion of their pay, or there's got to be just more things in place. And I hope that the podcast leads to that too. We talked to Javier Becerra, who's he's the Secretary of Health and Human Services, and we talked to him about some of the problems and things that we encountered. So we hope that he's taking those back to President Biden, and we can get some things going.
And it takes people with platforms and voices like yours to make a difference. I'll be working with Health and Human Services at a special event coming up this month. As a matter of fact, I was there And we talked about mental health, men's
Yeah.
mental health, especially men of color.
Black men. Yeah, it's very
Yeah,
important.
yeah,
Yeah.
because many of them will not. Yeah, in spite of the fact that millennials have removed a lot of the stigma
Yeah.
associated with mental health, but black men especially have a
Older
hard
black men
time.
for sure.
Yeah, opening up to that reality. Gosh,
Right.
where do you get the time to do all this? And be as
You know,
successful. You're talking about community. There's a potential movie that may be
yes.
coming out with that's going to take up some of your time. How
Yeah.
do you do it?
I think there's always time for the things that matter. I almost feel like, I know that God redeems the time, but I feel like sometimes he stretches time too. Because I'll look at my calendar, like I'll maybe do a Zoom with you for an hour, and then, I have to go and record a voiceover for one of the cartoons I do. Or then I'll come back and get on another Zoom about trying to help Harris-Walz get elected. And I don't care, like stack my schedule. Let's go. I feel like everything that I say yes to is worthwhile. Like even scheduling this time to talk to you, I was like, absolutely, I want to talk to him, and I'll find the time, and I'll put the lipstick on and throw this bun up, and we'll get into the booth and we'll get it done, because it matters. Only if it matters, though. There's a lot of things I say no to, but if I say yes, it's because it matters.
Our faith is a Judeo-Christian faith.
Mhm.
And in Judaism, they have an expression called tikkun olam. And it
Mm.
means our responsibility to repair the world, to do
Ooh,
everything we can to make a difference,
better.
to not
Yeah,
leave it the way we found it.
that's
And it
right.
sounds like you are doing exactly that.
I'm trying my best. I'm trying my best every day.
Well, I commend you on your life, your
Thank you.
energy. I hope we get to talk again
I'd love it.
because I don't see you slowing down anytime soon. So I'm going to try to keep up with all the things that you're engaged in. But thank you for who you are. I
Oh,
think that's
thank you.
so important that we embody the ideals of our faith, especially the teachings of Jesus,
Hmm.
and be able to express them in no matter what context we may be in.
Yeah.
God sends and you're familiar with this passage in Psalms, God sends his word to heal
Mm,
and to deliver.
that's right.
But that word needs a body.
Hands and feet.
Come on. That
Hands and
word
feet.
needs
Come
a
on.
body. And you've embodied that word in everything that you do. It's been a delight. Thank you
Thank
so much for being on the program.
Thanks for having me.
So tell me, Yvette, where can people find out about you?
Well, let's see. I am at Yvette Nicole Brown on Instagram and the Twitters. No, Instagram and Facebook. On the Twitters, I am at YNB, just my initials. And then I'm on a couple of the other social pages. If you go to my Twitter page, everywhere else I am Spoutable, and there's like 5 of Blue Sky. There's a whole bunch of them now. I'm on all of them under different handles, but they're all listed. So just at YNB on Twitter and at Yvette Nicole Brown on Instagram and Facebook will get you started.
Well, we're going to make sure to put your details in our show description so that people also have access to it there. You're an amazing woman.
Oh.
Can I say I'm proud of you? Can I say that?
Yes, please.
All
I need that energy. My mom is gone and my dad, so thank you.
Thank you so much there. And thank you, our listeners, for tuning in. If you like what you heard, you know the deal. Subscribe, like, share. You can find us on all podcast platforms. And we'll be back with another great conversation right here on the A.R. Bernard Show. Till next time, God bless.